looking today, Numbers 36. One thing I'm going to keep in mind, if you remember that back in, I think it was Numbers 26, we had this issue where when they were dividing out the land, we had one group, one tribe, one family out of one tribe, out of the tribe of Joseph and out of the tribe of Manasseh, where the father didn't have any sons. You remember that? And the daughters came and said, hey, don't count us out just because our father didn't have any sons. We should be able to still have an inheritance. And Moses went to the Lord, and the Lord said, those ladies are correct. And I always underline that because us gentlemen need to take that in consideration. A lot of times when the men go to the Lord about what these women say, the Lord a lot of times come back and say, they are correct. All right. Remember when Abraham was dealing with when Sarah wanted to move Hagar out, and Abraham went to the Lord, and the Lord said, do what Sarah suggested. That's the right thing to do, even though it kind of bothered. And I just noticed that as a little bit of a pattern that I see from time to time in Scripture. But we saw that when Moses went to God about these daughters that didn't have any brothers, and so therefore their inheritance was in jeopardy. And so God made a new rule. Not so much a new rule, but he gave let's say he gave them clarity on what to do. And he said, no, give them inheritance. All right? And that's what they are supposed to have. And that's because when things of injustice or things that are out of balance are brought to the Lord knows how to bring balance to the things that make our ideas and our focus out of balance. And so what we're going to see here is that you thought we were maybe finished with that issue, but we're not. We got one more thing that they bring to the attention of Moses about that situation. And they bring it in because they're at the point now where they are getting ready to go into the land, and the inheritance is about to be divvied out. And they thought about something else that they need to take in consideration. So let's go ahead, get the reading in, and then we'll speak a little bit more about that in just a bit. So let's go ahead and let's get our reading in here for Numbers chapter 36. Let's take a listen. If I can get that out of the way.
Chapter 36. And the chief fathers of the families of the children of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, of the families of the sons of Joseph, came near and spake before Moses, and before the princes and the chief fathers of the children of Israel. And they said,
The Lord commanded my Lord to give the land for an inheritance by lot to the children of Israel. And my Lord was commanded by the Lord to give the inheritance of Zelophehad our brother unto his daughters. And if they be married to any of the sons of the other tribes of the children of Israel, then shall their inheritance be taken from the inheritance of our fathers, and shall be put to the inheritance of the tribe whereunto they are received.
Me neither.
So shall it be taken from the lot of our inheritance.
Let me stop.
And when the jubilee of the children of Israel shall be, then shall their inheritance be put unto the inheritance of the tribe whereunto they are received.
Can you hear now?
So shall their inheritance
All right,
be
I'm
taken
going
away
to
from
start
the
it over
inheritance
again
of the tribe of our fathers.
Start it over.
And
Yep.
Moses commanded, chapter 36. And the chief fathers of the families of the children of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, of the families of the sons of Joseph, came near and spake before Moses, and before the princes and the chief fathers of the children of Israel. And they said,
The Lord commanded my Lord to give the land for an inheritance by lot to the children of Israel. And my Lord was commanded by the Lord to give the inheritance of Zelophehad our brother unto his daughters. And if they be married to any of the sons of the other tribes of the children of Israel, then shall their inheritance be taken from the inheritance of our fathers, and shall be put to the inheritance of the tribe whereunto they are received. So shall it be taken from the lot of our inheritance. And when the jubilee of the children of Israel shall be, then shall their inheritance be put unto the inheritance of the tribe whereunto they are received. so shall their inheritance be taken away from the inheritance of the tribe of our fathers.
And Moses commanded the children of Israel according to the word of the Lord, saying,
The tribe of the sons of Joseph hath said well. This is the thing which the Lord doth command concerning the daughters of Zelophehad, saying, Let them marry to whom they think best. Only to the family of the tribe of their father shall they marry. So shall not the inheritance of the children of Israel remove from tribe to tribe. For every one of the children of Israel shall keep himself to the inheritance of the tribe of his fathers. And every daughter that possesseth an inheritance in any tribe of the children of Israel shall be wife unto one of the family of the tribe of her father, that the children of Israel may enjoy every man the inheritance of his fathers. Neither shall the inheritance remove from one tribe to another tribe, but every one of the tribes of the children of Israel shall keep himself to his own inheritance.
Even as the Lord commanded Moses, so did the daughters of Zelophehad. For Mahlah, Tirzah, and Hoglah, and Milcah, and Noah, the daughters of Zelophehad, were married unto their father's brothers' sons. And they were married into the families of the sons of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, and their inheritance remained in the tribe of the family of their father. These are the commandments of the judgments, which the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses unto the children of Israel in the plains of Moab by Jordan, near Jericho.
All right, there we go. And that completes the book of Numbers. Now, what we find in this book, in this chapter, is another situation where good intentions and just going through life and trying to do things doesn't guarantee that things are going to come out right or fair or according to what the Lord would actually prefer. We go through a lot of stuff in life and we try to negotiate and to look at what's good and what's best. And oftentimes you can be in a situation that was intended for good, but life and the world, society, and sometimes even people's own ambitions and greed can manipulate things and cause a problem. But what's important is, before you actually get into a situation that if you continue the way you're going, down the road, there will be a problem. Can you anticipate that? Can you see that? And then what do? You get mad. Sometimes we do. Frustrated. Sometimes we do. But ultimately, will you bring it to God? Because if you have the insight to see, you know what, I'm going on a path, and the path that I'm on was a good path. The path that these daughters were on, they made the arrangement so that, you know what, when the inheritance is given out, we're going to get an inheritance too. But they also thought further along. They thought a second step. But now, what happens when we get married? According to the customs of the day that they're living in, the wife and all she has is joined to the husband, and the husband becomes the possessor of it. But the wife comes under the headship of the tribe of the husband. So, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with the tribe of Manasseh. And I'll always tell you to keep in mind, Manasseh. Manasseh had some issues that were some of their making and some of this happenstance. Remember, Manasseh was also one of the three tribes, although it was only half the tribe, that decided, I want my inheritance where? On the wilderness side of Jordan, and not on the milk and honey side. That was that tribe as well. Well, this tribe also has something else going on. They had a situation, not so much of their own making, where we had a situation where they didn't have any sons. Just one particular family. And like we stated in Numbers 26, they brought the issue up, and here now in Numbers 36, they're continuing that. So let's take a look, and let's take a verse by verse look at this. And it says and we always talk about when you start a chapter and you see the word and, that means you should go in and read verses before. in chapters before. And of course, with this one, you need to also be able to know what was stated in Numbers 26. All right, so it says, and the chief fathers of the families of the children of Gilead, the sons of Melchir, the son of Manasseh. So we're dealing with the tribe of Manasseh, of the family of the sons of Joseph, came near and spake unto Moses and before the princes. All right, so they're bringing this issue. They're saying, I see what's going on, and we're looking forward to getting our inheritance. But we got a situation about these girls, these ladies, when they get married. And look what the point they make out. And before the princes, the chief fathers and the children of Israel. Look at verse 2. And they said, the Lord commanded by Lord to give the land for an inheritance by lot unto the children of Israel. And my Lord was commanded by the Lord to give the inheritance of Zelophehad, our brother, unto his daughters. Okay, so that was the commandment. Yes, give them to the daughters. Don't leave them out. But then they say, now look at this. Look at verse 3. And if they be married to any sons of the other tribes of the children of Israel, then shall their inheritance be taken from the inheritance of our father, and shall be put into the inheritance of the tribe whereunto they are received, or the ones they got married to, for so shall it be taken from the lot of our inheritance. So what they're saying here is, look, this inheritance is ours. God gave it to us. God told us where we should form our borders when we get into the land of milk and honey. And if they marry, then there's going to be some issues. It's a situation where the women are, the husbands, if they're of a different tribe, will now say that's part of our land, and we're going to pass that along through our tribes perpetually. And so they bring that up. And they bring up another situation. Look what they say here in verse 4. Yes.
Excuse me, Wayne. Now, the tribe of Manasseh, this is where you showed us the map, right?
Yeah.
And they had like 3 different spots on the map?
They had 2.
2, okay.
Yeah, yeah. And they had one side, one inheritance on the milk and honey side of Jordan, and they had another on the wilderness side of Jordan. Okay, because remember, when Reuben and Gad decided that, hey, I like what we see. And we talked about how they decided to just go by what they saw, and they wanted to stay on the wilderness side because there seemed to be good pastures there. Well, half of the tribe of Manasseh agreed with them, but another half decided, no, we want to go. And so that tribe was split. And so look at verse 4. And it says, and when the Jubilee of the children of Israel be, then shall their inheritance be put unto the inheritance of the tribe whereon they are received. So shall their inheritance be taken away from the inheritance of the tribe of our father. So what are they talking about? Well, if you remember the Jubilee, we talked about that quite a bit. I think if you go back into the book of Leviticus, you can remember when we went through that. And what was nice about the Jubilee is that when you make negotiations and you sell and you buy and you do things to make your situation good, what the Jubilee guaranteed, and the Jubilee was every 50 years, it guaranteed that no matter what you do and try to sell the land and do all this kind of stuff, you're never going to end up completely without. You can make some bad decisions, some bad business decisions, and you're like, man, I shouldn't have done that. I have lost my land. I done sold it to this person here, and they're doing better with it than I did. I wish I had gotten it back. Well, the year of Jubilee guarantees one thing. No matter how bad a decision you make, after a certain amount of years, you're going to get your land back. You're never going to be perpetually poor. There is not going to be generational poverty, generational lack if you follow the years of Jubilee. So your father can make a bad decision and lose a lot of profit, but after 50 years, guess what? You get the land back. So the son and the grandson can be like, well, we're getting our land back because grandpa or dad or whatever, or great grandpa, they made some bad decisions and our land was not utilized properly. The year of Jubilee guaranteed that it went back. So poverty was, and that's the beauty of the Jubilee, it was not generationally locked. And so what they're seeing here is that when the land of Jubilee is manipulated and people are giving out and selling and negotiating, that it's going to, with the daughters, when they marry into another tribe, it's going to go back to that tribe and not back to them. And so they're looking at this from every kind of angle, and from each angle that they look at it, it looks like somehow we're going to lose out. What's interesting about this chapter is it points out how well-intentioned laws and things can be manipulated if people still don't bring it to the Lord to get guidance as to how to do the next step. And that's something about our life. It speaks to us. All right? What things are you doing? And if you were to sit and think about it, sit and pray about it, wait a minute, this is going to cause me an issue. This is going to bother my walk with the Lord. This is going to work against what God has given me. And then you got to bring it to the Lord, just like the tribe of Manasseh here did. They brought this to the Lord and said, wait a minute, we still see something here. Now, the question would be then, well, did God know? Of course he knew. Oftentimes, we have to keep in mind that a lot of times, God does allow us to figure out stuff and then bring it to him. And then once he sees that we have, did our homework and did our calculations, he will either then say yay or nay. All right? And that's something that we should always keep in mind. I often think about the situations like this, but I also think about situations like Paul or like John the Baptist, who went to the Lord and their situation did not change, but God still told them, have faith. And they ended up, having what I would consider undesirable ending, but God told them, have faith until the end. We also think about Daniel and the Hebrew boys, how they had the situation undesirable. One's thrown into the fiery furnace, one's thrown into the lion's den. But what happened with them was they were sustained in the problem. Problems are things that we will always have, and do we recognize it? And so one of these situations that we see here is an issue where we're going to end up not maintaining what God gave. God is the one that gave the inheritance. God told us what borders and what lands to have for those tribes that relied on God to tell them where to go. Keeping in mind, Reuben and Gad and half the tribe of Manasseh told God where they wanted to go. But now this particular portion of Manasseh is telling God, we got a problem, and letting Moses know, you need to go to God and find out what should we do. All right, so look at verse 5. And Moses commanded the children of Israel according to the word of the Lord. And I think that's important that we don't just read past that. Moses is talking to the children of Israel, but he's not talking according to what he says. It's according to the word of the Lord. So Moses obviously went to God about this problem, saying, the tribe of the sons of Joseph have said well. So this Joseph, remember, Manasseh is one of the children of Joseph. Verse 6. This is the thing which the Lord doth command concerning the sons of Zelophehad, who saying, let them marry to whom they think best. So right off the bat, he says, you can marry whoever you want. However, only to the family of the tribe of their fathers shall they marry. So, what it's telling them, you can marry who you want, but to keep this from becoming an issue, when you have a situation where you have daughters and no sons to maintain the inheritance, then the daughters have an additional responsibility. And there's something to be said about additional responsibilities based on a circumstance that you may have. Additional responsibilities can be granted and can be given to you because of your particular lot in life. And so you can have something that other people don't have to deal with. These daughters are told, listen, you can marry who you want, but there is an additional boundary around your actions. You can only marry within the tribe. That keeps it from going from one tribe to another. And so you look at that restriction, and it's given to them because of something that, well, I didn't, want to have this. Suppose I wanted to marry somebody outside my tribe. Well, according to your particular circumstance in life, God is telling you, I'm putting on you a additional boundary. You're going into the land of milk and honey where there's going to be a boundary of land. But if you happen to be a daughter that is of a tribe or of a family that didn't have a son that can maintain the borders that were given, then you have an additional responsibility. And that speaks to me so much to the work and to the activity of women in our society. They are given additional responsibilities a lot of times. Not because of any wrong or evil that they've done, but this world, the way it works. And you say, well, Wayne, you can go back to the very beginning, and that's true. You can go back to when God told Adam and Eve after they ate of the fruit of the responsibilities and the difficulties that were going to happen. And Adam was going to have to till the land, and the burden of the family and of the marital relationship will be placed upon the woman. And there's a lot we can go into that. We talked about that when we went through the book of Genesis. But now here's an additional responsibility. Now, what's important to pull out of this is that sometimes you'll go through your life and you go, why do I have to do this? Why does this happen to me? Why can't I just do what I see other people doing? Well, you may have an additional responsibility. God may have you in an area where he's showing you your borders, or showing you your land, showing you your inheritance, but also showing you, I'm going to require of you something unique. I'm going to require of you something special in order to maintain what I'm giving to you, so that the circumstances and situations of life don't take what is promised to you and give to another. In order to maintain that, you got to follow these other guidelines. And so that's an important concept sometimes that we don't like, but it's important to do to maintain what God's given. Let's keep going. What are we on? Verse 7. So shall not the inheritance of the children of Israel remove from tribe to tribe. Now, this is a statute. It was brought to the attention by Manasseh. But this rule or this guideline is going to be applied to any tribe, to any family that may find themselves in similar situations. Okay? So shall not the inheritance of the children of Israel be removed from tribe to tribe, for every one of the children of Israel shall keep himself in the inheritance of the tribe of his father. So if any other family of any other tribe has daughters and no sons, and then you give the inheritance to the daughters, don't tell them they can't have it. But then remember, if they give you to the daughters, and the daughters have to marry within that same tribe, they can't go outside of that tribe. So, an additional responsibilities to help maintain the inheritance and the gift and the borders that were given by God. Yes, sir.
Okay, so now when you say they have to marry within their tribe, so the tribe here, that's all family. Like uncles, aunts,
Yes.
brothers. So that means you're marrying within your family to keep your inheritance.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And it's gonna get a little bit more, just like what you just mentioned. It's gonna say that here in just a little bit here. All right. So look at verse 8. And every daughter that possesseth an inheritance in any tribe. So right now he's saying it's not just for the tribe of Manasseh, it's for any tribe of the children of Israel, shall be wife unto one of the family of the tribe of her father, that the children of Israel may enjoy every man the inheritance of his father. All right, so it's letting you know. All right, you gotta be married. You gotta be a wife of the family of the tribe of your father. So you gotta go into my father had some brothers, and they had some children, and then maybe they had some children, and I gotta look among all of them and find me and look to accept a marriage offer from them. Okay. And that way the inheritance will stay. All right. Now, what's interesting is that this is important for us because we have been promised an inheritance from God, and that comes to us from Jesus. Well, why? Well, because we are the church. And what does that mean? Well, the church is the what? The bride of Christ. We're married to Christ. Well, but wait a minute. Is Christ part of our? Yes, he is part of our family. How do you know that? Because the scripture says he took on the form of flesh. All right, so he had to become human so that we can get the inheritance that God can give. And then we then become joint heirs with Christ. So the inheritance that God has given, everything that the Father has, he's given to whom? To the Son. Well, then how do we get it? Because we married to the Son. But can we do it properly? Is it legal? Yes. It's legal because Jesus was born just like we were born. He's human just like we are human. The only difference is we were born in sin and he was born in righteousness. And then he told us, I will give you the righteousness that I have so you could be in line with me eternally, receiving that which is promised from the Father. So it's, once again, you read these things here and you can always connect them back to Jesus. Let's keep reading. All right. Let me just read that second part of verse 8 again. And it says, that the children of Israel may enjoy every man the inheritance of his father. Verse 9. Neither shall the inheritance remove from one tribe to another, but every one of the tribes of the children of Israel shall keep himself to his own inheritance. Okay. So this once again speaks to that concept of what God has given. God has given you something that's unique to you, that is part of what God wants you to have. A lot of what we have from God is collective. We all have salvation. We all have fellowship with the Father. We all have the ability to go to the Lord boldly. We all have that ability to be led and guided by the Spirit of God. But there are some things that's part of what you have that God is telling you to do and that you have to do that may not be something that other people have to do. And we always need to ask God, is there anything above and beyond that you're calling for me to do. And when it's revealed to you, one thing we should keep in mind, don't take what's revealed to you and apply it to somebody else. A lot of times people do that. They'll say, well, God showed me I need to be doing this. And then you try to get everybody else to do it. That's why we have so many different divisions within the body of Christ. Because everybody's trying to get everybody else to do what they are trying to do, even though they know God has given that to me. Well, that's true. He's given it to you. And it's for you. It's part of what your responsibilities are. Don't apply that to other people. Let other people find their responsibilities from God themselves. And that's an important part of your inheritance. Okay? Verse 10. Even as the Lord commanded Moses, so did the daughters of Zelophehad. All right, so they did it. These daughters, they did it. And then it goes off and it tells us that Mela and Tiezer and Hoglah and Milcah and Noah, the daughters of Zelophehad, were married unto their father's brother's sons. So that deals with what you had brought up before, Wayne. All right, so who did they marry? They married their father's brother's sons. And keep in mind, when it says sons, it could be sons or grandsons or great-great-grandsons. It doesn't have to be the direct, first cousin. It could be second cousin or third cousin. But either way, it was from that line. All right? And so that's who they married. And now the whole issue of, I wonder now that the daughter's married to a different tribe, what's going to happen? That's not an issue anymore. It's removed. And sometimes answers and situations can be done. Some answers are very simple. However, sometimes the simple answer requires further restrictions. And sometimes that's not what we want to hear. We don't want other restrictions. We don't want to say, well, everybody else seems to be able to do the way they want to do. Why do I? God has restrictions on you to maintain the gift, the inheritance, the things that God has given you. Your God-given inheritance sometimes requires an additional commitment. You say, well, is there anywhere else in Scripture where we see this? Yes, we do. Remember Samson. He was born. And when he was born, he had what? He was born with the Nazareth vow on him. So he was God's man, just like David was, just like how Noah was, all these other people. But God told Samson, I got a special thing for you. I don't want you to do certain things to maintain the Nazareth vow. And one of those things was he wasn't supposed to cut his hair. He wasn't supposed to touch a dead body. There was a few other things within that commitment. But he was given an additional responsibility to maintain the gift. What gift was given to him? Natural brute strength. To maintain your gift, you got to do some additional things that everybody else may not have to do. Somebody else want to go and get a little trim on their haircut, they can go get it. But not you, Samson. You can't go get a little shape up. You can't go get edged up. Right? You got to keep your hair going, and that's the relationship and an extra responsibility to maintain that extra gift that I've given to you, the inheritance that I've offered to you. Well, that speaks to us in so many different ways, because what that then does is it helps us to understand why certain people can be extremely sincere and they're walking with God and they're talking about what God is doing, and they say, well, I can't do this. And you say, well, I don't have a problem doing it. And sometimes what ends up happening is that people make other people feel bad because, well, God wouldn't have me do that. And then it becomes a situation of, well, I'm a little bit deeper, or I'm a little bit more connected to God because I'm doing this extra thing. No. Don't take it and allow the enemy to turn it into a measure of pride. Because God has asked you to go into a more restrictive walk. There's no need to make yourself think or feel, well, I'm a little bit better than everybody else because God's got me going a little deeper. That's the line that Satan fell into, where he thought he was, I'm a little better than all the other angels, and he ended up with what? Pride. So, and take the extra responsibilities for maintaining the inheritance, but stay humble. And don't be condemning. Because sometimes when people say, well, I'm not going to feel like I'm better, I'm just going to feel like you need to do what I'm doing. No, don't be condemning either. Don't condemn people because God got you on something that you feel, in your spirit, it just makes complete sense. These are the things I need to do or not do, and it just seems right. And it probably is. But that's your additional to maintain your inheritance. Let other people have their responsibilities to maintain their inheritance. Okay? And sometimes it doesn't always come out to be equal. I want to bring out another parable that Jesus talked about to help illustrate this. Remember the parable that Jesus gave, and I probably should have went to this parable ahead of time before the study because it would have pointed it out, but I'll just elaborate on it. Where he talked about there was a man looking to hire workers, and he went out and saw men at the beginning of the day outside idle, and he said, "Come in and work for me, and I will pay you, whatever it is, like a penny or 2 pennies or whatever it was, a pence." And they said, "Sure, I'll come in and I'll work for you." And they started working at the beginning of the day. And then he went out again later on around lunchtime and saw other people idle and said, "Hey, come in and work and I'll pay you what's fair." All right? And he just said, "I'll pay you what's fair." He didn't give them a number. And he said, "Fine." And then towards the end of the day, only an hour left to work, he saw other people. And he says, "Why are you sitting out here idle?" He goes, "Nobody hired us." He said, "Come in and work for me and I'll pay you what's fair." And they came and they worked for him for 1 hour. So when it came time to pay, Jesus said he started with the ones that came in last and gave them exactly what he promised the people that he hired at the beginning of the day. And he gave them their money. Now, what happened, and this is what we do, and this is what all this is about. The people that he hired at the beginning of the day, when they saw that the master gave them what he had promised to them, they said, "Oh, well, we're gonna get a bigger payday because we worked all day long," and they just started, and he gave them that same pay. Oh, I know. And so you begin to build in yourself this sense of entitlement. That, well, I have to be able to get this, and that's why it's important to keep in mind. Don't try to understand or explain what God does under the scales of what human fairness seems to be. Because what ended up happening, that when he got down and he gave the people that worked in the middle of the day, at lunchtime that he hired, the same money, and then when he got down to the people he hired in the morning, he gave them the same thing. And they were upset and they were mad. And they said, "It's not fair. We worked the whole day through the heat of the day. And you gave these other guys that only worked 1 hour the same pay, the same inheritance. You gave them the same thing." And he says, and from man's standpoint, that don't seem fair. But what this illustrates is God doesn't require man to set the rule of fairness. God has it for his reason. All right? And so what ends up happening, so then God said, "Now wait a minute. When I hired you, I told you what I was going to pay you. And you agreed to it. So that means you're mad at me because I was generous to these other people.
Right.
So you're going to be mad at me because I'm kind? You're going to be mad? I gave you what you agreed to. Right? And I often try to bring that out sometimes. If you remember, I try to make an illustration of we all sitting in the room and somebody walks in and says, "Hey, I got a bunch of money. I'm just going to throw a whole big old truckload of money in a room. All you get, all you keep." And remember, I make the example how everybody goes up and grabs it and then just so happens somebody grabs up almost half the money by themselves. And you still got more money than you got than when you walked in the room, but you start looking at the other person that's got money. He got almost half the money. Well, they were quicker to grab it. Are you going to be begrudged? You got something that you didn't have, and it didn't really cost you nothing. You got an additional blessing. And sometimes that's a problem for us as human beings. We are not happy with being blessed if we see somebody else blessed more. And that's a problem. We got to make sure that we identify that, because it's human nature. And you got to deal with it and correct it. So in this situation here, they're saying, hey, God sees that, in order to maintain the inheritance, I'm going to have to put additional restrictions. So when it comes down to me getting ready to get married, there's no need. If I'm born to a father, and that my father don't have any sons, it don't make no need for me to go visit guys down there in Dan or in Judah or where. I got to stay within my own my own tribe. I'm not trying to go out and be introduced or showcased to any other tribe. I already know there's a restriction on me. Then you call it fair or right or just, but if you want to maintain the inheritance, you got to do it. Samson, if you want to maintain your gift, everybody else is going to get their little haircut first of the month. You can't get your haircut. Now apply it to yourself. What is it that God has called you to do that you say, it seems like I'm the only one that seems to have to do this. And that's okay though, because it's keeping the gift and the inheritance and the abilities that God has granted to you attached to you. God can then use you, and he can use you properly. All right, let's finish this up. So verse 12, it says, and they were married unto the families of the sons of Manasseh, the sons of Joseph, and their inheritance remained in the tribe of their families of their fathers. Verse 13, these are the commandments and the judgments which the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses unto the children of Israel in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho. Now, I like the way the book of Numbers ends, because look at what the book of Numbers ends with. It ends by naming 4 nations. The first nation that it names is Israel. It says, by the hand of Moses unto the children of Israel. Okay, who are the children of Israel? Those are God's chosen people. He chose them. He told Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, I'm going to build a nation out of your descendants. And here they are. In the plains, and so where are they? They're in the plains of Moab. Okay, well, who's Moab? Remember, Moab is descendants of who? Of Lot. So we still see Abraham's descendants and whose? And Lot's descendants. All right, still kind of around. And remember, Moab was that nation that was born out of the incest relationship between the daughters of Lot and Lot. When they feared because they didn't see no other man after Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, and they got their father drunk, laid with them, and had children. One was born Moab, and that's the father of the Moabites, and the other was Ammon, and that's the father of the Ammonites. We'll see the Ammonites come along as well. Also, remember, the king of the Moabites was the one that hired Balaam to come and curse Israel. Okay? And then when that happened, Balaam couldn't curse him, but Balaam kept blessing him. But remember, Balaam, when they began to do war, was also slain. He was killed. But the Moab also was the one that had the women that Balaam taught them. Well, I can't curse the children of Israel with my words or with my prophecies. God won't let me do that. But I'll show you what to do. Have your women go and parade themselves in front of the men of Israel, and they will lust after them. And that's what they did, and that's what happened. And there was a great fall, and thousands of people died because of that action. Then it talks about by Jordan. Now, the river of Jordan is a place where there are multitudes of nations bordering that river. And we're going to see that the river of Jordan is going to be important in the fact that it will have in it monuments, but it also will have in it a situation where you will see what happened in the at the Red Sea, where God divided the waters. We're going to see that with this same river here. And then it says near Jericho. Jericho is a future problem. Jericho is where you are going to go. It's on the side of the land of milk and honey, and it's a fortified, locked up city that you don't have the key to. But what's going to happen? God's going to show them how you get into something that you don't have the key. God's going to show them how to pick the lock to get in, even though you don't seemingly have a visible key. And so when you look at this, you can see there is a past that is shady. Moab. There's Jericho, there's Jordan. That's the path that they're on. You're traveling through the Jordan, and you're going to establish yourself up and down this river. But you're going to have to go through Jericho to get there. And sometimes what we're going to see when we get into not the book of Deuteronomy, the book of Deuteronomy, when we get into that, Lord willing, next week, we'll rehash everything that we saw in these first three books of Moses. And then we'll give a outline of what happened. So Moses is basically in the book of Deuteronomy talking and sharing and rehashing, giving them a blow by blow. This is what we went through. This is what we did. And that brought us to this point. It's the book of Joshua that we're going to see them go and do battle in Jericho. So Deuteronomy is a book where we're going to get some overview of what they've been through. And I find that, and I'll probably reiterate this on next week, Lord willing, but just to keep in mind, every one of us have a book of Deuteronomy. Every one of us have a God-viewed perspective of our life. See, you have nostalgia and memories, and you can tell people, well, tell me about your life. Tell me where you were born. Tell me where you came from. Tell me, who you were involved with. Tell me about your parents. Tell me about your family members. And you can sit down and you can tell people a story. That's kind of like what Numbers and Leviticus and Exodus is all about. I'm telling you my story. But then, what happens when God tells your story? See, God's going to tell you. See, when God tells your story, that's like God giving you your own personal book of Deuteronomy. Let me tell you what I saw going on in your life. Let me tell you how I perceived it. There's another book, book of Chronicles, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, that do the same thing. We're going to see the life of David and all the various kings, but then God's going to come in the Chronicles and let me tell you how I see it from my perspective. All right? And so that's an important thing also to keep in mind. So there we have it. We are now right at the point where God is giving them what he promised them when they came out of Egypt, when we started the book of Exodus, when we were in there. And God told them, I want to bring you to a land of milk and honey, and here it is. Now, was there ups and downs and circumstances and situations? There certainly was. What does that speak? Well, it speaks to us. Do you got ups and downs and circumstances and situations, good days, bad days, unfortunate circumstances, things that you had no control over, other things that you should not have done, other things that you should have done? And it brings the experience of your life and your relationship with God, which is the walk that God has called you through the wilderness. But you're not finished walking, because you then got to go into the promises of God and the inheritance. And so we'll see that when we get into Joshua, the book of Joshua, we will see God bringing the situation and circumstances to bear about the promise. And I'm going to close with this, just a little foretell of even Joshua. When we get into Joshua, we're going to see death. We're going to see killing. We're going to see people put to death. We're going to see a lot of slaying. And I'm going to remind you, and we'll probably go back to the very first book of the Bible, Exodus, and I'm going to remind you, what did God say? The day you eat of this fruit, you shall what? Surely die. And what we're going to see in Joshua is death. We're going to see a lot of folks dying. All right? But then people are going to say, well, I can't believe God's allowing all these people to die. Wait. Everybody that's alive is alive by what? The grace of God. Because we're born in sin, shaped iniquity, we are born in death. So the fact that we're born and we have natural life shows the goodness of God. But sin catches up with all of us. But we got to make sure that we get to know Jesus before sin reaps its final action upon us. All right? And it is appointed unto man what? Wants to die. Now, how you die, sometimes that's what we're going to look at when we get to that. That some of these deaths are not going to be very pleasant. But it's still death. And we'll try to bring that out. So that's just a little preview of where we're going now that we're finished with the book of Numbers. And so I'm going to stop here. Any other comments or questions about what we've talked about?